So may I start the invocation song?
Yes.
Yeah.
वैष्णव जन तो चले कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो चले कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान न हाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। सकल लोक सहुने वंदे निंदा न करे के नीरे। वाचका मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी ते निरे। वैष्णव जन तो कहिए ये पीड़ पराई जाने रे। समदृष्टि ने कृष्णा त्यागी। समदृष्टि ने कृष्णा त्यागी। परस्ती जेने मातरे जी पाथ की असत्य न बोले। पर धन नव झाले हाथ रे। मोह माया व्याप नहीं जैने दृढ़ वैराग्य जना मन मारे। मोह माया व्याप नहीं जैने दृढ़ वैराग्य जना मन मारे। राम नाम सुतानि लागी। राम नाम सुतानि लागी। सकल तीरथ ते न तन मरे। वर्ण लोभी ने कपट रहित से काम क्रोध निवाया रे। भने नरसयो तेनु दर्शन करता कुले को तेरे साजा रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए
Welcome. After the Vaishnava Janato sung by M.S. Subbulakshmi, which was one of the most favorite songs of Gandhiji. Welcome to the Siddhi webinar series. Siddhi webinar series is being envisioned as commemoration of Mahatma Gandhi's 150th year celebrations, birth anniversary. But this is Mahatma Gandhiji's 151st Jayanti. So to commemorate Gandhi Jayanti, we are organizing a Health and Environment Week. Today, October 2nd, is a very special day as Gandhi Jayanti. Plus also Professor Sujata Srinivasan's birthday. So happy birthday, Sujata. And it's also very apt that we are conducting this event today on this day. The title of today's webinar is Designed for Independence, Enhancing Quality of Life for Persons with Disabilities. Siddhi, Self-Reliant India, discussions and debates discussions and dialogues for humane innovations. This is the expansion of Siddhi. And the themes that Siddhi deals with is technology for society, technology for self-reliance, technology for rural development. All the three were very close to Gandhi's heart. So what is the aim of Siddhi? The aim of Siddhi is to create synergies for transforming India by providing a platform to discuss socially relevant technologies, by bringing all the stakeholders together, academia, industry, experts, policymakers, government officials, social entrepreneurs, think tanks, and the general public, to make technology affordable and also accessible to society. That is the main aim of Siddhi. Today's topic is also extremely important because Gandhi's emphasis was to make sure that there was equity and equality. So just before he died, just a few days before he died, he gave a talisman, which, to paraphrase, goes as follows: that whatever policy or decisions that the government or anybody makes, it has to reach the person who is the last in the totem pole. To quote C.K. Prahlad, bottom of the pyramid. So that is Gandhi's talisman. So we are trying to contribute a bit on our side. Today's moderator will be Mr. Feroz, who heads the SAP Academy for Engineering. Feroz is also the managing director of SAP Labs India. Currently, he is a chairperson on the board of Specialist Turn USA, a non-profit foundation with the aim of creating 1 million jobs for people with autism and similar challenges. He is also the founder of the India Inclusion Foundation, a non-profit aiming to bring the topic of inclusion at the forefront in India. He will be the moderator. And then I will ask Professor Raghunathan Rangaswamy, Dean of Global Engagement, IIT Madras, to say a few words about Siddhi, and then hand over the mic to Mr. Feroz. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudarshan. I welcome all of you to this webinar. We have been hosting these webinars for quite some time now, and we had a very interesting webinar yesterday on universal healthcare, healthcare for all, and the challenges that we face in India. Today is another very interesting webinar where this is a lot more apt for our series, where we are actually looking at technology and how technology can help in alleviating some of the difficulties faced by people, as Sudarshan mentioned, at the bottom of the pole, or people with special needs and things like that. So I'm really happy that we are doing this, and without taking much more time, I will ask Feroz to start the proceedings and conduct this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Firstly, very good evening to all the listeners in India and hopefully around the world as well. I'm extremely honored to be invited to moderate this panel because this is one of those rare panels where I can say everybody who's a panelist is a dear friend, and I'm a big fan of all their work. And you would have seen their bios before, so I wouldn't go through their bios in detail, but try to give a Gandhian perspective to not just their work, but a little bit of my personal understanding of Gandhi's work in his lifetime. I've heard a lot of Gandhian stories from a lot of people. Everybody has a Gandhi story to narrate, but let me share my favorite story. And this was, I got to hear from Dr. Arun Shourie, who's one of the great scholars of India, was a former cabinet minister, and I'm fortunate to call him my mentor in many ways. And he narrated this story about how once Gandhiji's secretary, Pyarelal, who spent a whole life with Gandhiji, documenting his work, writing his biographies. So he was once addressing a lot of people in a small village. And then one of the villagers stood up and said, Pyarelal ji, everything that you are saying is right. And I'll kind of translate this into English and Hindi so that to give you the context. He said, गांधी जी के बारे में आपने जो कहा है सब बहुत बढ़िया है, लेकिन हम गांधी नहीं बन सकते. Which is so true, right? I mean, Gandhi ji's level is so high that most people think, well, everything that you're saying is true, but I can't become Gandhi ji. It's just too hard. And Pyare Lal's response was, कम से कम 4 आने की गांधी बन जाओ, तो वही बहुत है. Which means you don't have to become a Gandhiji because it's not possible, but at least become a 4 Ana Gandhiji. 4 Ana in equivalent is 25 paisa. At least become 25% of what Gandhiji became. And that would make the world a much better place. And in many ways, we're all trying to be a 4 Ana Gandhiji, many of us in our own small ways, to contribute back to the society. My personal journey of understanding Gandhiji started after I passed out of my engineering. I did my computer science engineering from NIT Warangal, and I read a book called Bapu Kuti. If people who have not read it, I would highly advise you to read it. It talks about many people, Gandhians, who still living a Gandhian way of life, and it was written by a very popular Gandhi scholar, Rajni Bakshi. And I read this way back in 1998. So I passed out in 97. I read the book and I never realized, and I became a huge fan of Rajni Bakshi, and it took me 15 years before I met her. And now we both have become very dear friends. And the reason I'm bringing that book is, I don't know, for all movie fans, the movie Swades was actually inspired by one of the stories in that book. And I still believe it is probably one of Shah Rukh Khan's best performance. But more than the performance, it is the story of a very idealistic young man who goes to the US, leaves his job, comes back to India to serve the country. And that had ignited the imagination of the whole nation. And when I look at the panelist, when I look at the youngest person in this panelist, Swastik, and every time I meet him, I see that spark of idealism. Someone like him could walk into any big multinational, but he's instead chosen to build the devices that you'll hear about for the marginalized community. I think if we had a few more swastiks, the world and India would be such a beautiful place. So Swastik, let me first start by introducing the youngest member. Thank you for being part of this panel, and thank you for the work that you do. And I mean it when I say I have a great admiration for what you're doing. I wish you continue on this path and serving the country in a very meaningful manner. As I said, his official bio, I will not go through it. You will know more about the work he's done. But he's the CEO and founder of NeoMotion. And he was a student of Dr. Sujata, which talks volumes of Dr. Sujata, that if you can, as an educator, as a teacher, inspire young students, inspire your own students to take the path that people like Swastik has taken, I think that is probably the greatest testimony of what a good teacher is. And I'm saying this because my father was also a professor in Indian Railways. He started off as working as an engineer and finally went on to teach many of his students. And I see that when I ask him what is his greatest joy or happiness, he says, is when he sees his students being successful. And so, Professor Sujata, you have ignited many young minds. And I've said this before, I'm a huge fan of Professor Sujata. And I don't know what's the connection with Gandhiji, but many happy returns of the day. I don't know whether the fact that you were born on the centenary celebrations of Gandhiji is the reason for you to take the path that you have, wherein in many ways, I would say she was path breaking in the sense that she was the first woman mechanical engineer graduate from IIT Madras. I don't know if it's the first one, but you're probably the only one in your class. In way back in 1992, you passed out. And I know that for a woman to study mechanical engineering was a rare thing, and study out of IIT Madras would have been even rarer. But you also took a path where you spent almost 8 years in the US, came back as a professor at IIT Madras, and now you're heading R2D2. You've inspired a lot of local innovations. So thank you for all that you do, ma'am. And once again, many happy returns of the day. The world is celebrating your birthday. Uh, thank you for all that you do. And Vaidi is again somebody who's a very dear friend. His life is an amazing journey. He's a Gandhian himself in the sense that he lives a very minimalistic life. And he is a distinguished alumnus of IIM Bangalore. And he's wheelchair bound um, because of an incident while he was doing his doing his management studies. But he's actually converted his challenge into a mission for life. He's lived a very fulfilling life, but he also went and left his corporate life and said, how can I contribute to people with spinal cord injuries? So, Vaidi, thank you for all that you do, and welcome to this panel. The way I will take the next, maybe we have, 50, 55 minutes ahead of us. I would ask each of the speakers to kind of set the context for between 5 to 7 minutes. And then we can, I have some questions, but I'm also looking forward to questions in the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, just put it on the Q&A section. I'll try to go through that. But maybe let me step back a little bit and share some context about the topic itself. And why is the topic of disability so important and so fundamental? The first report on disability worldwide was produced in 2011, which was done by World Health Organization along with World Bank. And I'm talking about 2011, so the numbers may be a little outdated, but it gives you a baseline of the condition of people with disability across the world. According to that report, 1 billion people have some form of disability in the world. That's 15% of the world's population. And if you just look at numbers, and I know many people from IT are very analytical, and so they love numbers. But if you look at the context of that, every person with disability has a direct effect on at least 4 people, which means the direct family members. And I'm saying this because I have a son who's disabled, and it affects the immediate family directly, whether it is the parents, grandparents, siblings. So if you consider 4 as an average number that a person with disability affects, 60% of the world's population is directly impacted by disability. And that's not a small number. In fact, the report says that the people with disabilities is the largest minority in the world. There is no other section that is as big as 15% of the world's population. This is a 2011 report. So you can imagine that number is actually increasing. There are many new kinds of disabilities that we're dealing with. And so this is a topic which cannot be ignored. And one of the reasons I started the India Inclusion Foundation was to bring the topic of disability to the forefront. And the 15%, believe me, doesn't include older people. If you include people above a certain age, my parents had knee surgeries. They were on a wheelchair for at least momentarily for some duration of time. So disability is a spectrum that is going to affect all of us in our lifetime. So it becomes a moral responsibility for us to deal with it when we can right now, because it'll affect all of us in some form or fashion. And let me end by sharing Gandhi's view on this. And Rajni Bakshi wrote a beautiful column in Indian Express, again something I would request everybody to read. She talks about Gandhi's defining moment, which was the train journey in 1893 from Pretoria to Durban, where he was thrown out of a train even though he had a first class ticket because of the color of the skin. And he said at that moment, he could have had 2 reactions. One was a reaction of resentment, where he would have shown his anger to the person who threw him out of the train. And the second, and he said that was the harder one, was to understand the system that created a person who responded the way he or she did. And so his mission, he said, is I would rather suffer for the rest of my life, but spend time in building a better system. And he called it creative resistance. And all the panelists that I am here today have walked that path of what I call as creative resistance. They've all said, what is it that I can do to make a system better so that in the long run, everybody is included. And people have often asked me, Feroz, what is the definition of inclusion? And my definition is creating a world where nobody is left behind. So with that, I would like to first ask Sujata ma'am, not just because she is the lady in the room, but it is her birthday. So I would ask her to share her opening remarks, maybe ma'am for 7 or 8 minutes, and then we can go through the other panelists.
Swastik, thank you very much, Feroz, for that lovely introductions and for setting the stage for today's webinar. We couldn't have asked for a better introduction there. Swastik, can you start sharing the slides, please? So, as you mentioned, the numbers from the World Health Organization, if you look at just numbers in India, the International Committee for the Red Cross did a study based on data from the Indian census and the world WHO's data and all that. And we have over 30 million people in India alone who are affected by locomotor disability. Now there are various kinds of disabilities, obviously, but as a mechanical engineer, this is something that I have the tools to tackle, and that's probably the only reason our lab looks at locomotor disability and devices for people with locomotor disability. So if you look at the spectrum of assistive devices in India, or even in the world, on the one hand, in developing countries, at one end of the spectrum, you have really low cost devices, but most are pretty primitive technology. And as a result, the users in many cases reject these devices because they're not really enabling them functionally to be better participants in society. And in the other end of the spectrum, you have really high-tech, expensive devices. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars for some of these devices. They're inaccessible, even to people in Western countries. And even if somebody in India can afford them, in many cases, they're not suitable for the conditions in India. And therefore, again, you have a void. So really, there's a gap where, we could have more functional devices that are more suited to Indian conditions, and they should also be more affordable. And that is something that drives the vision of R2D2. So R2D2 stands for Rehabilitation Research and Device Development. And when I came back to India to join the faculty at IIT, I started working with my students on projects in this area. And the idea was, we have the tools to design and make for India. We want to design devices that are appropriate for Indian conditions. We want to use appropriate technologies, not technology for the sake of technology. And as part of an academic institution, we could create a unique environment for this kind of development. I wanted to, as you mentioned, like Swastik, I wanted students to consider maybe working on their projects beyond their final year projects or something, to look at it even as like a short-term career option or as a launch pad if they wanted to start up, which was how Swastik did it. And I have some other students as well doing that. And in all this, the underlying goal has been to go from prototype to product for maximum impact. Because this is an area where private industry really doesn't have a lot of incentive to invest. It's a very fragmented market. The need is there, but the demand is not there because of the nature of the market. And it's a very cost-sensitive market. And so we've actually come up with a model for development. It's a collaborative model that I call the grid model, where R2D2 IIT Madras, as the nodal research institution, brings in grants from funding agencies that are focused on impact, not necessarily on financial return, but on impact. And we bring together industry and dissemination partners in order to do this collaborative development up until the point of product launch. Now, how this helps affordability is that because all the R&D costs are factored into what we do here at IIT Madras, the final product becomes very affordable, and the industry only has to worry about operating expenses when they are pricing the product. So that's one way we thought we could create affordable products. Swastik, could you? These are some of the facilities we have created. We have facilities for biomechanical analysis because we want to do things from a scientific standpoint. We want to ensure that the products that we create are biomechanically appropriate. We do extensive mechanical testing so that these products are durable for Indian conditions. And of course, prototyping facilities. These are some things we were able to establish through various grants over the years. And we have an extensive network of collaborations with all the stakeholders. There are NGOs, many individual users, medical institutions, academic institutions, industry, and all this would not be possible without the support that we get from various sources, foundations, the government of India, and various private industries who support us through their CSR funding. Our first success story using the grid model was the Arise standing wheelchair. So this is a wheelchair that allows the user to self-stand without any external assistance. And it has been a long journey, but with this grid model, with sustained support from the Wellcome Trust since 2015, it took us about 5 years to get the product to the market. And I'll just play you a video that will show you what. So these are some of the users. We've done extensive user testing. Over 150 users were able to test this device during the development. It went through several iterations, which is really necessary because you want to make sure that the product is customizable, because one size will not fit all. And Swastik will tell you that story even better. But that was our goal behind this extensive user testing. So now I'll just play a short video that will tell you what's
India's first standing wheelchair is here. IIT Madras, in collaboration with Phoenix Medical Systems, launched the unique wheelchair named Arise on November 5th. This wheelchair enables persons with disabilities to shift from sitting to standing position without any external support. The wheelchair is suitable for outdoor use and on uneven terrains as well.
So we have also developed various other wheeled mobility solutions, prototypes over the past 10 years. Pediatric solutions, we work on prosthetics and orthotics. Rehabilitation and therapy is another set of devices that we are working on. And our goal really is to get as many of these to the market as possible. Yes, it is a long process, but if we want to do it right, that's what it's going to take. But our vision is for self-reliant users who have access to high quality products made possible through a self-reliant assistive technology landscape in India. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sujata ma'am, for setting that context. If you allow me, I have a couple of questions before I go to the next speaker. I've been checking the Q&A section. Let me first answer a question myself, because one of the comments was that we should use the word people with special ability. And let me maybe instead of people with disabilities, and this is a question that I've got for almost a decade, and I'll tell you why and what is the answer behind that. So I was writing a book called Gifted, inspiring stories of people with disabilities. And I got the same question, Feroz, why are you using the word people with disabilities and not people with special abilities? And I got various responses to this. So finally, I went to the late Javed Abidi, who's been one of the icons in this area. And he said, sir, what should I actually use? Because it had to be on the title of my book and I couldn't have done it wrong. He said, Feroz, use the word people with disabilities because that is approved by United Nations, right? Because people with special abilities and there are many other terms that are used. And he said, don't get lost in the terminology. You have to do what you have to do. Use people with disabilities because that is approved by UN. So just to clarify, that's the reason I've used the word people with disabilities in this context.
Can I add something to that,
yeah,
Feroz?
yeah, yes, please.
So somebody I was talking to once made this eye-opening remark. They said, disability is something that is imposed on the person because of the conditions, the environmental conditions or the lack of accessibility. So using people with disability is a constant reminder that we have to address something. So that is the way I look at it. It's not something, so I tend not to use the word disabled people because it's not something that defines the person, but we as a society are imposing the disability by not making the right devices and the right infrastructure available to them. I mean, imagine if people who wear eyeglasses don't have the right eyeglasses with the right prescription. Then I am also a person with a disability if I don't have the right eyeglasses. So that is the I think it is a reminder for us to get that word out of the society. So
absolutely, thank you for that. I just thought it was important to answer that because I saw it in the Q&A chat. But I would like to go back to understand one aspect, Professor Sujata. You have 30 patents plus patents in your name. Now my question is, a lot of what you do is in the academic field and you're trying to bridge the gap to productization. My question is, where does the IP for all these products lie? Is it with IIT Madras or do you transfer the IP to the product organization?
So the IP for all these products lies with IIT Madras, and we typically license it to whoever is interested. And it's that's how we do that. IIT Madras has an IP cell that handles the technology transfer.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you, Sujata ma'am. I'll ask Swastik to share a little bit about his journey as being the co-founder and CEO of NeoMotion Assistive Solutions Private Limited. Swastik, over to you.
Thank you, Feroz. So I'll start with by sharing the journey of probably how NeoMotion started, and it coincides very beautifully with what Dr. Sujata shared. So in fact, I got introduced to this field when I was doing my final year project, and I wanted to be involved in product development and probably find and work in an area where there is a product being developed at the same time which has got a social impact. And that's how I was introduced into the field. And once I got to know more and more, I thought that this is an area which requires intervention of the skills and knowledge that we have gained, and that's something which we should do. If not now, then when? And the journey of NeoMotion also started during one of these engagements while I was working on the standing wheelchair project along with my colleague Vivek Sarda. We were traveling across India. We went to 40 odd locations across the country, and we had a very good understanding, a ground reality understanding of what exactly is happening. What are the kind of products that people are using? What is the environmental condition where it is being used? What is the societal condition where these products are being used? And by having this immersive experience, we found that there are two primary challenges which people out there are addressing, which are facing, which NeoMotion is trying to address. So the two challenges are every year, close to 3 lakh wheelchairs are sold in India, and 95% of them will be of the concept of one size fits all. Now imagine if all of us start wearing shoes of size 14 and try to walk. Now, yes, all of us are wearing shoes, but is size 14 really helps us to do anything? Now, that's what is the reality. 95% of the people use such a product, such a wheelchair. And as a consequence of this, the health gets damaged over time. Propulsion, moving around, is a challenge. And you can imagine what would happen to the self-esteem and the confidence of a person. Imagine the entire attention is actually on the wheelchair and not on the person. So that's what are the kind of products when it comes to wheelchairs. When it comes to outdoor mobility, people use tricycles and modified scooters. They allow people to move around, go outdoors very well. But the challenge really is transferring independently from a wheelchair to a scooter. Now, how would a person have the strength or the ability to be able to transfer independently? And from the numbers that we have got, it's close to only 1% of people who could benefit from a device like this are actually able to use it because of the complexities involved. In this context, we have our products, NeoFly and NeoBolt. NeoFly is a personalized wheelchair, which is designed for the user, which is built for the user. We do close to 18 customizations to ensure that the health, the lifestyle, and the environment of the person where the product will be used is taken care of, and all these factors are ensured. And as a consequence, a person has a good propulsion, a great posture, the health doesn't deteriorate with time, and that's what we achieve with NeoFly. NeoBolt is a motorized attachment that converts NeoFly into a safe roadworthy vehicle. So you don't need to transfer anywhere. You're sitting on your wheelchair, just clip on NeoBolt. It converts into an electric bike. You can go to your office, you can go to school, you can just go for a leisure walk, for a recreation. So it really introduces a seamless mobility. I'll share a video so that we all can have can understand the product better.
मेरा 2011 में दोस्त के कंधे पर से गिरने के कारण मेरा शरीर पैरालिसिस हो गया था। इस व्हीलचेयर प्रयोग करने के बाद आसानी से हम कहीं भी जा सकते हैं, आ सकते हैं। हम लगभग 1 साल से काम कर रहे हैं इस प्रोजेक्ट पे।
It's the best India designed wheelchair that I've sat on in 27 years.
पहले हम व्हीलचेयर से हम जो मैराथन करते थे उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा समय लगता था। इस व्हीलचेयर के प्रयोग करने के बाद टाइमिंग है वो बहुत कम हो गया है। एक गाड़ी आती है जो कि इस व्हीलचेयर में आसानी से हम सेट कर सकते हैं, और गाड़ी सेट करने के बाद हम आसानी से बाहर जा सकते हैं, कम स्पेस में जा सकते हैं और कहीं भी पार्किंग कर सकते हैं, और समय का बचत हो सकता है, क्योंकि अगर हम ओनली व्हीलचेयर यूज करते हैं तो हमारी समय ज़्यादा लग सकता है। बट वो गाड़ी जब सेट करने के बाद आसानी से हम जा सकते हैं एक स्थान से दूसरे स्थान, और जो कि उसमें पूरा स्ट्रॉन्ग है, मजबूत है, गाँव में चला सकते हैं। अगर गड्ढे ऊंचे नीचे हैं तो आसानी से चला सकते हैं। अभी हमको कोई डर नहीं है, हम कहीं भी जा सकते हैं।
See, I have a car that I drive. It's hand operated, but often the challenges that I face in terms of mobility is somebody to get your wheelchair, somebody to kind of load it, somebody to help you with the transfers. What NeoBolt does, what is the difference in terms of accessibility is For example, going to a shop, a regular shop, what I often do is park the car somewhere. I can't get out. And if it's not nearby or if there's a traffic, then I'll have to park somewhere away, give a call to that guy, and if it's a known shop, okay, I might have the number. But otherwise, I'm just stuck. But this, I straight away go to the entrance of the shop and ask somebody to, kind of give whatever I want. Or even going to my parents' place, it's a huge challenge. My parents' place is only 5 minutes away, but I'll still have to take the car. With this, I just, roll my wheelchair out, put the bolt on, straight away go there, and then get the bolt on out, get into the lift, and go to my parents' place. So that is what it does. The ease of accessibility. I think that's the key. This makes a world of difference to us. Wherever we want to go, just bolt on and just keep moving. Be it, a flyover or a ramp. I can easily negotiate a steep ramp, or even a threshold for that matter. A 1 foot threshold with this wheel, I can easily negotiate with, which I can't otherwise with just my wheelchair. Today, when I was riding this, the feeling of the air coming and hitting on my face, I think that's the true sign of freedom and liberation. To go to the grocery shop or to the supermarket, now my wife is going to kick my backside and I have no excuses, absolutely.
Thank you. That's what I had to share from my side.
Thank you, Swastik. That was fantastic. More power to you, and more power to all the work that you've been doing. Maybe two questions which I'm sure the audience is interested to know. One is, what is the cost? Because I'm sure that is top of the mind. So how much does a NeoMotion and a NeoBolt cost? And how do you compare that with the cost of something similar internationally? Because I think the big part of your innovation is to reduce the cost dramatically. That's my first question. And I'll follow up very quickly with the second question. What is the biggest challenge that you're facing today to take both these products to market?
Yeah, thanks, Firoz. So NeoFly is priced at 35,000 rupees. Any product with a comparable feature would be at least 5 to 6 times more expensive. Now, while we understand that we may be a little more expensive than what's available conventionally in India, but when we look at it from a life cycle cost, we are economical. And a like-to-like product would be 5 to 6 times more expensive. For NeoBolt, for the outdoor mobility, so you need to use the wheelchair as well as the add-on. So both the units put together, you'll be able to purchase at 85,000 rupees, which is something similar to that of a bike. And again, here also, when you compare like-to-like, comparable products should be again at least 3 to 4 times more expensive. So that's what we have, those are our price points. The challenges that there lies in front of us is, in India, what we have realized is the number of people who actually know how to ask for the right product, the education and awareness of what exactly is a wheelchair. How do we specify a wheelchair? Like I'll share with an example. Like when we want to go and buy our cell phone, we'll be able to say that I need, this is the screen size, probably this is the kind of battery life that I would require. So there is so much of knowledge that's available and people are able to specify. But being the kind of space that these products have been sold in, very few people, including the medical professionals, are unable to specify, yeah, this is what a good wheelchair would be like. And had they been doing that, the kind of products that would be available here would be better. And it would not be something what is anything available out there, but something which is more meaningful to the end user. So education and awareness would be our largest challenge. The second challenge, which we have been able to address to some extent, is now this is a customized solution. We require a lot of information about the end user to get all that data, to customize the product and then deliver it to them. Now this we have been able to work out. So right now we have delivered 140 units and all those 140 units have been delivered remotely by getting the data from the end users without they need to travel or without we needing to travel. And they have been doing fairly well. So yeah, these are the two challenges. One is still open. Second, we have been able to find a way.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Swastik, for giving that perspective. I'd like to invite my friend Vaidi, who is, as I said, the co-founder and CEO of Touch Rehab, and I'm greatly inspired by what he's done, especially in COVID times. The COVID situation has affected people with disabilities disproportionately, and there was a lot of there's a recent report which says that how it has affected people with disabilities, the marginalized community, way more than the others. So Vaidi, a lot of work that you've done with Touch Rehab is handling people with spinal cord injuries and to provide support during these times through Touch Rehab. And I must apologize, I used the word wheelchair bound, but I should be wheelchair user. So thank you, Komal, for correcting me on that. Vaidi, how would you like to share your vision for Touch Rehab, and how is this going to support people with spinal cord injuries?
Thanks a lot. I think if I'm here today, I think it's because of...
Vaidi, we can't hear you.
Can you be a little louder or closer? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Able to hear me now?
A little better, but you have to be maybe a little louder, Vaidi, if that's possible. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
If I'm here today, I think it has to do with the vision that was set out by Dr. Suranjan Bhattacharjee, who was in charge of my rehabilitation in 1990 and went on to lead and expand the best rehabilitation facility in India as part of Christian Medical College, Vellore. He told Ilango, a batchmate of mine and IIM Bangalore, and me, as I am alumni, you guys in due course will be in positions of influence. It would be great if at some time you guys could do your bit for persons with disability. That is why I'm here. And incidentally, Dr. Suranjan Bhattacharjee was also an integral part of Professor Sujata's graduation project, and she will tell you how...
Vaidi, we can't hear you. A lot of people are saying you're not audible. Could you speak?
Now?
Little bit louder, please.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Not really, but just maybe shout at the top of your voice, Vaidi. I know you can.
I think Dr. Suranjan Bhattacharjee, who inspired me, was also the person who was the motivating factor behind Professor Sujata's journey in the disability space. Her first project was under him, and he's been articulating the vision that if we have to reach each and every person with spinal cord injury in India, we need to think out of the box. Physical facilities will not do the job. At present, the good facilities that are there in India can cater to a maximum of 1,000 persons with spinal cord injury every year. And on a conservative basis, depending on whom you believe, anywhere between 12 to 25,000 people sustain a spinal cord injury every year in India. More than 3.5 lakh people live with spinal cord injury in India. And our journey to start trying to change this landscape started in 2010 and through the Ganga Foundation. And then it led to the formation of the Spinal Foundation, which is the pan-India organization, a collaborative effort of various platforms that came together to present a unified face for persons with spinal cord injury. Dr. Suranjan Bhattacharjee wanted the best practices of spinal cord injury to reach everywhere in India, and so that we are able to enable each and every person with spinal cord injury to live well. We have a short video on Touch Rehab, and I'd be happy to take your questions later. Swastik, may we have the video? Touch Rehab aspires to enable every person with spinal cord injury to live to his or her highest and fullest potential. Touch Rehab is a vision of Dr. Suranjan Bhattacharjee, the former director of Christian Medical College, Vellore. The spinal cord injury best practices, the knowledge resources part of Touch Rehab, the awareness project, and the research on lifestyle are hosted at R2D2 at IIT Madras. and we have a top-notch design and therapy team working on end-to-end high-quality resources. Touch Rehab Skincare is a sample of prototype of work that was done about a few years ago. To guide people with spinal cord injury for COVID-19, Touch Rehab Pandemic Guidance was launched on May 22nd, when the number of deaths in India was 3,720 and the number of cases was just 1.2 lakh. And updated guidance has been launched on September 14th without changing any messaging, which indicates that our messaging has been focused and consistent. Persons with spinal cord injury have been struggling to go anywhere in the era of COVID-19. To enable them to move on in life, virtual training program has been launched by the users, for the users, with best-in-class health professionals providing guidance if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaidi. Maybe my first and immediate question is, how do people get in touch and get to know more about this? Is in COVID times, is this all on teleconsulting basis? If somebody wants to know more, how does it work right now?
This project was officially launched on 15th August 2020, in the Independence Day of India, and we wanted to reach independence to the doorstep of every person with spinal cord injury, and that is how we have started it. We have still not officially sort of announced it in a widespread way. At the moment, we are working up with about 30 persons with spinal cord injury, either who need to complete training to become independent or have specific health issues that need guidance. From complete training with independent living to dealing with the fracture, to dealing with the bladder emergency, to dealing with the chronic kidney disease, irreversible. These are the kind of conditions that we have been handling since August 15th. And we are in a kind of a prototype kind of a phase. And the good aspect is that because the fundamentals rest within the 4 best practices of the Dr. Mary Varghese Institute of Rehabilitation, which is India's oldest and first rehabilitation center, so envisioned in 1958 and set up in a phased way in 1963 and 1968 by Dr. Mary Varghese, an alumnus of Christian Medical College, who sustained a spinal cord injury just 1 year after completing her MBBS in 1954. Because the foundation is great, our product and service is of the highest quality. We are now finding the best possible ways to expand, scale, and deliver this into the doorstep of every person with spinal cord injury, wherever he may be in India.
Very good. Thank you.
If I may add to that, Feroz.
Yes, please, ma'am.
So if somebody, the COVID guidelines for Touch Rehab, they are from Touch Rehab, they are available on the R2D2 website.
Okay.
And that booklet also has contact numbers for people to reach the experts at Touch Rehab.
Very good. Thank you. I think everybody has got a context of what you are speaking. We have maybe 10 to 15 more minutes, and we've got a lot of questions. So I'll try to kind of combine these questions and put it out there for each one of them to pick it up. But let me start with a lot of questions on the product front. So as I said, I'm combining at least 3 questions together. The first is really, does this work, NeoMotion work on electricity, battery, petrol? Does it need a license? And somebody pointed out that the users in the video should use a helmet. So maybe all 3 together. Swastik, maybe you can take that, or Professor Sujata, one of you can take that.
Yeah, so it runs on battery. For every charge, we cover 30 kilometers, and the battery can be recharged in 4 hours. It does not require a driving license or registration. The speed has been limited to 25 kilometers per hour. And the third point is right. It should be used with a helmet.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, one of the questions, and this is a very, a technical question maybe, but changing the center of gravity is the added advantage of a best wheelchair. Is that possible in NeoFly? I don't know the technicalities, but maybe both of you can throw some light on that.
Absolutely. It's one of the adjustments that's available. I think I'll let Swastik answer it.
Yeah. So of the all the features in the NeoFly wheelchair is adjustable except one, which is the seat width. So keeping the once a width has been decided, that stays fixed. Everything else is adjustable, including the center of gravity. So based on how much of a trunk control and trunk balance is available with the user, it can be adjusted to suit the requirements. And it helps. So if the center of gravity, if the wheel is shifted forward, the propulsion is easier. But it requires the person to have a good trunk control and balance. If it is not available, we shift it backwards and get the optimum possible out there.
So in the process, which they call NeoFit, there's actually a long telephone conversation with the user to understand their lifestyle, to understand their needs before they get to pick the parts of the wheelchair, and to also help set the adjustments for the wheelchair. So that's an important part of the wheelchair, of generating what they call the wheelchair prescription. So it's something that's very, very customized to the user's needs and lifestyle.
I again try to combine two questions. One is, what were the testing procedures NeoMotion products go through before you go through the commercialization phase? And the second one is, I think a very valid question, is a lot of people who are wheelchair users may have very little strength on their hands. So how do they use this product? Swastik, you want to take that?
Yeah. So there is a standard for wheelchair durability called ISO 7176. In one of the photographs which Professor Sujata shared, it was a testing rig. So in that, we subject the wheelchair for it's something like an abusive testing, which simulates what the wheelchair would go through in real world, probably what it goes through in 3 to 4 years time. We achieve it within 2 to 3 weeks time over a continuous testing. So that test allows us to say that yes, the wheelchair is right. And this is to do with the durability from when it is moving. Also, there are tests of static stability, like what happens on a ramp at a particular angle, does it fit inside a lift? So these are other tests which are conducted as per a standard, which we do before it was commercialized. Sorry, and the second question was, Feroz?
The second was the many of the users don't have the power in the hand,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So
yeah,
how do you take care of that?
Yeah, so the propulsion can be adjusted by various ways, the amount of effort that would be required. So by one of the important elements is by setting the center of gravity. Second, by getting the posture right, at what ergonomic position where you sit, you are able to access it. Obviously, there will be challenge in terms of moving it, but what we bring is a change. By shifting from thicker tires to thinner tires, we reduce the overall resistance, the energy that would be required to propel it. That also brings in that. So we have had users who were earlier propelling probably on their own 100 meters a day. They have gone to 500 meters to a kilometer over a period of 2 to 3 months time. So that's the sort of change we have been able to see when people get used to the customized features.
Very good. Now, if somebody wants to buy a NeoMotion product, and now my question is, in COVID times, how does this work? Do you kind of deliver this to their homes, and how much time does it take to fit the entire product to be ready to use?
So we collect the details from the user remotely. So we first, through a questionnaire, we understand their health and lifestyle. It lasts over a 30-minute duration. Then we collect their photographs and measurements through a video guide. Once we have all this information, we generate a prescription, which we discuss with the user, so that user actually gets to visualize, this is how I will be sitting on my wheelchair. This is how my overall configuration will be like. Once they say yes, that all these requirements are in sync and I'm okay with that, we take 14 days to assemble and dispatch the product. Now, during the COVID times, this time has been extended for, it has taken probably more than a collect the data remotely, do everything, and deliver it to them remotely. After remote delivery, there is also a requirement that they may need some changes with time. So sending up spares, making adjustments on the wheelchair has also been achieved through video tutorials, and we are able to do that remotely. Like we have delivered till to 24 states in India right now. Like we shipped to Goa, Assam, and Mizoram in the last 1 week. Those are the 3 new states we added in our last 1 week.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that, Swastik. Maybe I'm just looking at the time and I want to be sensitive of the fact that we are on time, but I'll probably use this last question for Professor Sujata, which is, if there are startups that are not incubated in R2D2, can they use the R2D2 facility for testing on other purposes, ma'am?
Definitely. I want to encourage as many people, as many students and entrepreneurs to work in this field as possible. So our facilities are available for others to use, and we would be happy to work with you to enable that.
Fantastic. And maybe I'm getting a little greedy now because those questions are so relevant. If you allow me, can I spend maybe 3-4 minutes more? Again, I'm taking permission from the listeners as well, because I think this is a great platform to answer those questions. One of the question is, have you seen an increase in usage of the standing chair after the official inauguration? Sujata ma'am, maybe you would like to take that?
Yes. So after the launch, again, because of COVID, the production was halted for some time. Also, the industry partner is a medical devices company, so they have been focusing their attention on COVID-related products. They build ventilators and other life-saving devices to handle COVID. But they have started shipping out. So about, I think, 20 users have been using the standing wheelchair. These are part of the initial users who got it around the launch time. And they have been using it for close to a year now. And they recently contacted several of them. The company contacted them to see how they are using it. And it's incredible, you know, the stories they had to share. You know, one of them said she's able to cook now because, you know, the wheelchair allows her to stand in the kitchen. The other person, you know, she's now doing weight training exercises, which is, you know, something very important, especially now when you can't go outdoors, to be able to exercise at home. So she had actually sent me a video of her doing, you know, with those stretch bands. While standing, she's doing exercises with the stretch band. So Chanchala was doing that. So they have, and she's now standing for close to 2 hours a day. You know, the recommended therapy, for therapy purposes, you should be standing for maybe 20 to 30 minutes a day. But it's like any other form of exercise, right? I mean, if you get on a treadmill, you'll probably only walk for half an hour. But if you park far away, or if you integrate walking into all your activities that you do, then you're likely to do it far more. And one of the things some of the users said was they're able to stand for longer periods of time, which in the long run makes them more functional, makes them, you know, provides them more health benefits. So yes, but now that the company also has now put the production of the standing wheelchair on the front burner, and they've started shipping out units. With the standing wheelchair, the critical thing is also correct fitting and, you know, to ensure that the right posture is attained. So it's not a product that's suitable for every wheelchair user. They have to meet certain conditions. And for that, we've also created awareness material, which is available on the R2D2 website. You know, to tell people who is suitable for the standing wheelchair, and, you know, what can they do, what should they not do, all this information, and how does the whole assessment process happen, you know, to determine their eligibility for the standing wheelchair. So it's a little bit of a, you know, it's not something that you can buy off the shelf and start using. It requires some assessment and guidance to use the product initially. But they've started shipping out the units now.
Thank you. Maybe this is the last question in the interest of time. And Swastik, there are questions around is NeoFly and NeoBolt shipped internationally? I think there's a participant from Saudi Arabia who's very keen to have that. And last question is there an EMI possibility? Can people pay in parts? I mean, 35,000 is still expensive for many people. Maybe you can close with those and then I will hand it back to the moderator.
Yeah, so EMI schemes are available. One can buy a NeoFly at starting 2,000 rupees a month. We have sent NeoMotion products internationally. We have our products in Malaysia right now.
Very good. I think that was a fascinating discussion. I must admit, I didn't realize it's already 1 hour, a little more than an hour since we started. I have never seen 55 questions in a Q&A box. I've been doing a lot of webinars and I get happy if I get 10 to 15 questions. That obviously means that the panelists have kept you engaged and the topic is of absolute interest. I think all the details are available on their respective websites. So if people have more questions, they can reach out to Professor Sujata, Swastik, and Vaidi separately. So here are the email addresses. Feel free to write to all of them. I personally wanted to thank you for, number one, giving me the opportunity to share this platform with, as I said, my favorite people. So thank you so much, Professor Sujata. Thank you, Swastik. Thank you, Vaidi. I will pass it back to Professor Sudarshan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a great panel, and we all really learned a lot of things about a generic term called disability or people with special abilities. Now I actually request Professor Karthik Raman, who is the advisor of global engagement, IIT Madras, to give the vote of thanks. Karthik.
Yeah. So I think you're able to hear me, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure everybody is as amazed at the kind of work that's been reported in today's webinar as I am. And although many of us are aware of what goes on in IIT Madras, it's still it's very nice to hear this from the horse's mouth. And it's very nice to see the different kinds of panelists that we had for today. And I think it was a fantastic session. So I really thank all the panelists for taking their time and the moderator for taking their valuable time. I think there are too many of these webinars going on, so it takes a lot of mental effort to coordinate one, sit in one. And I'm also similarly thankful to all the panelists for staying right through the end and raising so many questions, as Feroz was pointing out. So thank you all for being here. And let me remind you that we have 2 more exciting webinars coming your way. So there's one tomorrow, which is at 7:30 p.m. Because we have somebody from the west coast of the US. So they're going to have an early morning getting up and trying to engage all of you again. And that's on wastewater management in the 21st century, and which is going to be moderated by Professor Indumati from IIT Madras. And on 4th of October, we have another webinar, which talks about sustainable water and waste management in villages, which is, the speakers are our own faculty, Professor Liji Philip and Professor B.S. Murthy. So these again promise to be very topical, very relevant to today's challenges, and I look forward to having most of you back for all those webinars. So thanks again for tuning in today, and I'll catch most of you tomorrow again. Thank you.
We have the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय है भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय
Our thanks to our friends at Trinayani for that wonderful rendition of the national anthem.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sujata.
Thank you all.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Have we stopped recording or just to be sure?
Yeah, Harish, just the panelists, we can actually have the panelists discuss, no?
Yes, Professor, just give me 2 minutes, Professor. I'll start.